Hello, everyone. This is Marc Sabatella from Mastering MuseScore. Welcome to the MuseScore Café. So this is my regular Wednesday series where we talk about some aspect of making music using MuseScore, and I show you how to do various things. We have a chat, I can answer questions, and usually I have a particular topic to talk about. Today, one of the things I want to talk about has to do with time signatures and escaping the bounds of the time signature, the different ways there are to go beyond just what the time signature says should be the number of beats in a measure, and all the different situations where that's useful, how we might do it. This session, as always, brought to you by the Mastering MuseScore School. I've got the link pinned up at the top of the chat, and that's the Mastering MuseScore School is where you can enroll in my Mastering MuseScore Complete online course, which covers virtually everything there is to know about MuseScore in great detail, videos, and really, really clear instruction, as well as my new counterpoint course and other theory courses and so forth. Highly, highly recommended. Check it out when you have a chance. But for now, let's be present for this, and let me bring up my chat on my phone so I can be checking up on it. And I'm always happy to see people checking in and letting me know where you're all from. So, okay, so scrambled audio. Jeez. All right. Such things happen, right? Um, all right, so here's what I'm going to do. Is it still the case, first of all? Is it still bad? Let me listen. Okay, so scrambled audio. Jeez. Yeah, I hear what you mean. Okay, so such things happen, right? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? I end it. Let me stop and restart. All right, we'll see if it's any better now. So give me a moment to test this. All right, we'll see if it's any better now. It's not really better now. Let me try something else. Let me delete my mic. No, I don't want to do that. Let's try it this way. I have unoptimized for music and see if this is any better. I have unoptimized for music and see if this is any better. That is better. Normally I have it optimized for music, and I just am curious if that's. No, that's not better, is it? Um, so I don't know what to tell you. Um, uh, frustrating, frustrating, frustrating. Um, it happened. It was right. Okay, so is it better now? Is the question. Um, okay, so is it better now? Is the question. Maybe a little bit. All right. Well, I'm gonna go on, and we're gonna make the best of it. Okay. So, welcome everyone, and sorry for the weirdness here. Never know what's going on. Okay. So the thing that I want to talk about today has to do with, as I said, time signatures and kind of escaping their boundaries. Let me make sure that in the chat, if I missed something other than checking in and comments about audio. Mostly it's a lot of audio things. And okay. So yeah, the thing that I want to talk about has to do with escaping the boundaries of the time signature. And what I mean by this, there's a number of things that happen in music in which this might come up. And I want to show you a couple of examples of what I mean by this. So, for instance, um, I was hunting out some different examples to see if I could find something, and I figured there must be something in a Chopin nocturne I could show you, and sure enough, here's one. So if you look at what I have here, you see that, wait a minute, this little cadenza thing going on, and this is what this is. This is basically a passage in which you're intended to play it out of time. It's just some notes to play. It's not a particular time signature. He didn't bother adding this all up and say that is exactly a 19 tuplet or anything like that, right? It's can't see me. What? All right. Really? It's gonna be one of those days. Uh, I see the screen. Um, is it okay now? It looks like it's okay to me. I see the screen. Yeah, okay. I don't know what's going on. Life, computers, etc. All right. So, I'm going to monitor my phone that much more closely and make sure everything really is still okay. No examples. Okay, so when I did my screen share, here's the deal. I think I know what I need to do. This doesn't really explain what went wrong, but entire screen is what I want. Okay. I would like to think that that this works. So right now I am seeing the music. So at the moment when I'm saying this, that I am seeing the music, I would love it if you could respond and say, yes, I hear you say I am seeing the music and I see the music too, or I'm hearing the music. No? Okay, so something is just wrong here then, huh? Um, uh, I said I wanted to share. All right, plan B. This is extremely frustrating when things don't work as they're supposed to, but try again. Change screen share. This time I'm going to tell it to just share the MuseScore window. The penalty for this is going to be that you won't see dialog boxes, and that is going to be an issue. But I think that this is going to otherwise work. So no, because that's not on MuseScore. Gosh darn it! This is going to be just crazy frustrating. But give me one more second. One more second. It's always something, and this time I need to hit the update stream button that I didn't hit last time. No? Well, if I reboot and start again, I'm going to lose this link, and it won't start with. Will we have the music? So I get to wait again a few seconds and find out if it's going to work. Nope. You see nothing, right? Uh, Gosh darn it. I really have no idea what could be going wrong, but I apologize. There's really mm, nothing I'm doing different than usual. So it makes no sense to me that this wouldn't be working better. I'm going to show you some music. I think you're going to, okay. So we saw something for a moment, yes? So the question is, if I now change this back to share my whole screen, which is what I want to share, will it work? Because that's what I need to share. I need to share my whole screen because I'm going to be flipping windows. So visit tab. That's a new little message there because I'm trying something different. Okay. I am now looking at music again. I would love it if you could see the music that I'm looking at. And I'm waiting. All right. This is not going to work today. Um, sorry. So uh let's just have a little chat here, shall we? Since there's not the screen share is simply not working. I am going to try to reboot. I think it's not going to work. I think I'm going to lose everything when I do that. I just rebooted before the session, so not having high hopes at all for that. But I am going to try it. Um, yeah. And I will be back in a couple of minutes. But what I would love it if people would do, the things that I wanted to show you had to do with entering things like this Chopin cadenza that I had all queued up to show you. I wanted to show you some Renaissance music. And for me to get all that back queued up after I reboot is going to be a pain in the butt also. But luckily, it wasn't going to take me long to show you what I wanted to show you. So if you want to hang out and wait and see if I come back and if everything's fine, that would be wonderful. If not, I totally understand. We'll try the same session again in the future if this doesn't work. But you'll have to give me about 2 or 3 minutes to come back. Meanwhile, I think the chat will stay active. Feel free to ask questions, and either of me and maybe each other, you can answer some things. Have a discussion if you're able to while I'm gone for the next few minutes. All right. So I'm going to sign off, attempt to reboot, and come back and see what happens. coming back shortly. And we'll leave again and come back in a moment. Oop. Okay, so I have something now. This says loading. I'm not happy about that. Okay, so then the question is, when I go to bring up some music, nocturnes, will we see it? So, oh my gosh, look at that! You're gonna get to see music this time. You're gonna get to see music. Yay! All right. So I was looking at 27. See if I can get back to the same one. It was Opus 27 score. All right, here we go. Meanwhile, let me also start MuseScore again. So the nocturnes are loading, MuseScore is loading, and this is what I previously had all nice and queued up and ready to go. But the nocturnes are just about there. And here's MuseScore. And nocturne window is, there we go. Yay, music. Okay, so what I had done was scrolled through until I saw a cadenza. And someone asked, what is a cadenza? Well, the easiest thing for me to do is just sort of sing you this passage here. It's all in time, right? I don't know what the tempo is here. Con animas agitato. I'm going to say it's fast. So starting from like the last line of this page here, bum 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 bum, and then let's see, bum 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 bum, ba da 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 dun 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 dun, key change, dun 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 dun, bum bum bum, bo bo. So, in any case, what I'm doing is I'm singing all this left hand business here, not in tempo, right? I was in tempo up until that point. Bum 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 and there's my fermata. And then these notes are not in time. They're played freely. That is the idea of a cadenza. And so it's notated in like this extra large measure here that doesn't have bar lines in it, and realistically, it doesn't really mean to play quarter note, quarter note, quarter note, dotted quarter, eighth, 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 eighth. It means play it freely. He's using quarter notes, dotted quarters, and eighths to give you a sense of which are the longer notes, which are the faster notes, but it's not meant to be played in time, because if it was meant to be played in time, he would have notated it in time. So there's a number of ways of making that happen in MuseScore, and that's what I want to focus on here. So there's a couple interesting things going on. One is that this actually has like this measure, this bar line in the middle of the measure also. So we get that to play with also. So I'm going to flip back over to MuseScore and create myself a new score with a grand staff, and I'm going to start entering some of these notes. So the basic time signature of the piece was 3/4, so I'll set that. It's in 3/4 now, and I got a couple measures of, I saw A, right? It was a bunch of quarter notes. Yes, it was an octave higher, but whatever. I'm not interested in getting the whole thing, just showing that there's some 3/4 measures. Then there's some stuff where it's So half note. So already we can see there's too many beats going on here to be uh, um, to really be 3/4. Actually, though, I think what he's really saying is that one voice is the quarter E and then the half D. The other voice is this. The stems are all going the same direction, so it's a little hard to make that out, but that's what I'm going to take this as. So I'm going to enter this as in voice 1, A with another A. I accidentally hit the staccato. I keep hitting Shift S accidentally when I'm trying to hit Shift A. There we go. So we have the half note A, and then we have the quarter note G, F, and G. And there's a key signature here of 4 sharps. Might as well get that because those notes there are actually all a half step higher. All right. And then in the second voice was, and this is actually, since the stems are down, I'm going to enter in voice 3. I'm not sure why it was done that way, but I'm just going to go for it. It's an E. Well, you know what? I'm going to enter it in voice 2, and I'm just going to force the stems the way I want, because otherwise all the stems are going to be up. And I don't want that. I want them all down. So I'm going to enter that in voice 2, E, and then a half note D. So this is the way it's entered there, and then for some reason these stems are forced down, and this E was moved to the left. Kind of an odd, more than a little bit odd way of entering that. It's quite it makes this measure look quite more confusing than it otherwise needs to be. But it captures the idea. Oh, my typing. Yes, you're right. Thank you. Demo. Okay, so there we go. So I have this part of the measure entered, but as we can see when we look at, so that's this stuff here, but we can see a number of things going on. There is a bar line here, but it doesn't extend through both staves. Furthermore, the bar line is sitting right where this note is, right? This note doesn't start after the bar line, kind of starts on the bar line. So we're dealing with some kind of weirdnesses here. What this really tells me is this is really one big measure. This bar line is not a real bar line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a big measure. How big do I need it to be? Well, I don't know. I can count beats if I want. I can say that's 1, 2. I've already got 3 beats, so that's 4, 5, 6. These two together are 7, 8, 9. I could count beats, but I don't want to count beats. If you feel like counting beats, then you can right-click your measure, go to Measure Properties, and say it's whatever, 19 beats. If that's how many beats it is. And now you have a measure with 19 beats in it. I typically don't count beats. I enter notes and then join the measures. So let me show you what I mean by that. In the left hand here, there's a B sharp and F sharp, dotted half note, B sharp and F sharp. And then these quarter notes, right? B sharp, B sharp, C sharp, and then C double sharp. Where are you? Double sharp. Oops, dang it. C double sharp. And then I have the dotted quarter E, and then eighth note D, and then a whole bunch more eighth notes, right? So I'm going to enter some of these. There's a... Okay, so this guy here, this accidental here, there's a natural and then a sharp on that C sharp. The natural is there to cancel the double sharp, and then another sharp there to say, oh, it's really a sharp. So that actually exists in MuseScore. You can get at it there in the accidentals palette. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to enter my C. And then click that accidental to enter that natural sharp. And then B, A, G, B, A, G, and then F double sharp. So you can see now that all these bar lines are here that don't belong there, right? I'm not going to worry about that. Let me just finish entering the rest of the eighth notes. It's a G, a B, and then walking down the scale to a B sharp. A, G, F, E, D, C, B sharp. Oops, sharp. And then a D. And then that whole passage, shift left, whole passage is in octaves. Alt 8 will add the octaves. So I have that passage, and after that, there's some more stuff, some half notes and some quarter notes, but I'm about to have a little bit of a problem because if you can see where I've ended up, assuming I didn't mess up, and it's entirely possible I did mess up, and that I skipped a note or added a note or did something a little funny, but it's ended up with me kind of in the middle of this measure here, and as soon as I try to enter a half note and then a quarter note, something's going to have to cross that bar line. So I don't want that. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to select all of this business here, and I'm going to give myself a few extra measures. I'm going to select it all, and then I'm going to say Tools, Measure, Join Selected Measures. Bam. Now it's all one big measure. Now I can enter my other notes. I've got a half note, and then see, I can't read that many ledger lines, but I can kind of count down from there. I can look at the top notes and assume they're all in octaves. It's a quarter note G, and then quarter notes F double sharp, G, and then D. G, and then D. And then it's another F natural sharp, and that's a dotted quarter. F natural sharp, and then eighth note E. And again, all of that stuff doubled in octaves. So there's my passage, and that's as long as it is. So if I play this now, so it plays it all in time. If you want to get tricky and add little invisible tempo markings there to speed it up and slow down as you personally see fit, you're welcome to. But I'm not done yet, right? So I joined all those measures together, but now it's too much. This is where I want it to end. I want it to end after that E, right? So what I'm going to do is select the rest there that comes after the E, and now go to Tools, Measure, Split Measure before selected note or rest. And now the measure is split there. Furthermore, there should be a double bar line there, so I'm going to go ahead and add my double bar. And still not done. A couple other things that I want to do. I'm not going to worry about all the dynamics and stuff because that's stuff we can worry about. You can all do yourself. But I am going to try to make things happen like this. Notice there's no rests in the top staff. So I'm going to basically select everything there on that top staff and press V to make it invisible. So now those rests are invisible. Then I'm going to add a mid-measure bar line. And to do that, I'm going to select that invisible rest there. And if I think about how this works, I gotta get this right. I believe let me actually save this right now because I have no earthly idea if what I'm going to do is right or not. But I think it's going to be Control-click the bar line. So I'm going to select that rest, Control-click the bar line. That did not seem to actually do what I wanted it to do. Oh, yes, it did. No, it didn't. See, notice it added a full bar line there. What I want to do I'm going to select the rest and not control click, just click the bar line. There we go. That's what I want. So control click did something different. Clicking, because I add these mid-measure bar lines seldom enough that I never remember the exact procedure. So again, let me be real clear on what I did. I selected that rest and then clicked the bar line, and it inserted a bar line within the measure. It's still all measure 3 here. That's all one measure. You can see that because when I click an empty space, it selects that whole measure. It's really one big measure that just happens to have this bar line in the middle of it. Now, in the original, that bar line lined up with these notes. And in this case, it doesn't, because it's trying to do what it thinks is the right thing. And so now oh, you couldn't hear the playback? Oh, that's too bad. Do I want to mess with it? Yeah, I want to mess with it, but because I'm a glutton for punishment and I think this is going to work. So let's hear it now. So I think that probably worked. And if not, don't worry about it because it's not going to matter. Yeah, it worked. Okay, good. So I am wanting to get this bar line lined up with that quarter note. And I'm not positive of the best way to do this, to be honest, but I'll tell you what I think I want to do. I think I want to reduce. So MuseScore looks at music in vertical slices. Like this bar line is a slice that goes all the way down to this staff, and there's nothing that corresponds with it. This note here corresponds with that rest. What I want to do is move this whole slice, the rest and the note, over to kind of overlap that bar line more. It's possible it won't let me do it fully, but then I'll be able to move the bar line over, because I don't want to move the bar line over right now because it'll be kind of too far away. If I see how close the bar line is to the notes. So I don't want to move the bar line over. I want to bring the rest of the notes over. So I'm going to select, I can select either the rest or the note, doesn't matter. And then I can come to in the inspector where it says leading space. And I'm going to put in negative leading space to just start moving this stuff over. And there we go. I was able to get it to be kind of, I got that rest kind of perfectly centered on that bar line. I actually didn't fully expect that to work. I expected it to complain a little more about this and maybe not let me move the note under the bar line. I'm a little bit skeptical. Like, I suspect if I close this score and now reopen it, I might be in for a surprise. Hopefully it's a good surprise. It is a good surprise. I was a little afraid that it wouldn't, kind of preserve that arrangement, but it did. So there you go. So then I can select that bar line and I can go to the Articulations palette, and I think I know I can add fermatas over normal bar lines. What I don't know is if I can add them over these funny mid-measure bar lines or not. And it looks like I can't add a fermata over the mid-measure bar line. It's not letting me. So the next question is, will it let me add it as a symbol? I'm going to press Z for the symbols palette. And I'll just type fermata and see if I can enter a symbol. It looks like not. Looks like it's not going to let me add something to the bar line, but that's okay. Do I need it on the bar line? No, I'm perfectly happy to add it to the rest. So there we go. There's my ace. There we go. So I got my fermata on my bar line. And now I have more or less exactly what was there in the original. Now, in the original, they managed to squeeze all of that onto one system. And by default, MuseScore's not wanting to do that. In part, it's because this system is indented. So let me push it to the next system. And it's still not quite fitting. Did they? Yes, they did. Notice that these notes are small, right? they're small. You can compare the size of these notes to the size of the other notes and see that they've been made smaller so that they could fit more of them in there. So I'm going to do that as well. I'm going to select everything from here to here, and I'm going to come over to the inspector. And now when I did that, the inspector suddenly got less interesting. That's because I don't only have notes selected. I have the notes, but also the accidentals, also the stems, also the beams. These are all considered different things. And so there's lots of different kinds of things selected at the same time. So the inspector is not very useful right now. In MuseScore 4, that's been addressed. So when that ever comes out, a few months down the road, that'll be an improvement. But what we can do now is click this notes button that you'll have to trust me is right below my face. And when I click notes, now only the notes are selected. And now I can come to the inspector and in the chord section here, select where it says small. I don't want to select where it says small on the note because that'll only make the note head smaller. It won't shrink the stems or the beams or anything else. But if I click the small under the chord section, it makes everything smaller. And now there's a little more of a fighting chance to get everything all onto one system. It's still not quite doing it, right? So I want to see if I can get there just by selecting this and reducing the stretch. So I'm going to use the left curly brace to reduce stretch. There we go. Reduce stretch 2 notches. Let it all fit. And then I can enter a system break on the double bar. So that process that I just went through, if you think about what I did, the first thing I showed you was how you could right-click the measure and just go to Measure Properties and enter the actual duration there, how many beats long you want that measure to be. That assumes you know the answer, though. And realistically, you don't necessarily know the answer unless you want to do the math. So that's not necessarily a good way of doing that sort of thing. So instead, what I did was started entering the notes, and then I used Tools, Measure, Join selected measures to join them. And I added a few extra empty measures at the end so that once I joined them, I could add these long notes without them doing weird things like straddling bar lines. So I created an extra big measure, added all the notes, then I used split measure to kind of chop off the beats that I didn't need. Actually, better way I could have done that. Notice now, here's that chopped off part of a measure there. What I really should have done, if I had wanted to just let me join these 2 measures together. I actually have defined a shortcut because I use that join command often enough. So for me, it's Control-Alt-J to join. If I just wanted to get rid of those 2 extra beats, instead of splitting the measure there, Control-Delete just makes them go away. That's really what I should have done. But I wasn't thinking. I wanted to show you the split command. So there you have it. Key command for smallifying stuff. So yeah, normally that's not something you would do all that often, and that's why there's not a shortcut for it. But I will say, if you're creating music in which you're using small a lot, my guess is it would be possible to define a plugin to take the selection and smallify it. And then it's possible to assign a shortcut to that plugin. So we can't realistically have shortcuts for every possible property of every possible element. We can, create what we want, and then let you access it by a plugin. And then if someone wants to create a plugin for it, it's not necessarily something that anyone could do, but smallifying things seems like it might be common enough that someone else might be interested in doing that and might want to try to write a plugin for it. Now, you'll notice that once I shrunk those measures down, that adjustment I did has now overshot the mark. My rest is now no longer lining up with the bar line. So I'm going to come back over here to the inspector and start pushing it over a little more. There we go. A little happier with that. I'm kind of eyeballing, how far I want that where I want that fermata, basically. But you play with that yourself. So in any case, that is a common way that I go about doing this sort of thing. There are other ways, and I want to show you these other ways because depending on what you're doing, it might be more useful. So here's one. Let me enter a note. Let me enter actually the last few beats of this. The last few beats of this is a D, an F sharp, and an E, right? So D, F sharp, E. What I want to do now is insert a lot of stuff. Oh, this guy was actually a dotted note, right? I want to insert a lot of things in front of this note here. Let me just take all this business up an octave so we can read it. MuseScore has an insert mode. If you come to the drop-down menu next to the note input icon and click Insert, I can type a whole bunch of eighth notes now. And they're inserting in front of that note there. So you can use that to create kind of arbitrarily big measures also. You enter the last note first and then select it, or enter the last few notes first, and then with the cursor there, switch to insert mode, and you can now start inserting notes in front of it. Remember when you're done to go back to the normal step time mode. There's another thing you can do also that's along the same lines. So D, F, E. If I want to insert notes in front of that D without changing modes, there's a special command, Control Shift plus the letter name. So if I want to insert some eighth notes now, 4 for eighth note, and then Control Shift C. Control Shift D, Control Shift E. As long as I'm holding Control Shift, it's inserting those notes one at a time. So there's another thing you can do, Control Shift plus a letter name to insert that note, and then it will grow the measure as you go along. So yeah, so I got to show you that thing with the bar line there, which is great. I want to show you one other thing because I intended to show this, and by gosh, I'm going to show it. I'm going to take the motet that I wrote for my counterpoint course that hopefully you've all kind of heard by now, and show you how to convert this to what's called Mensure Streak, which is a Renaissance form. So first of all, in a lot of Renaissance music, there are no bar lines. And so I could just select those first 4 bars and then say, measure, join selected measures, and now it's all one big measure, right? I could do that. And a lot of Renaissance music is notated that way. However, for modern musicians, that's hard to deal with because we're so used to thinking in terms of counting and keeping track of what beat we're on. So I see a question from Sora about which method is best. I don't know, and by which I assume you mean whether I want to join measures or use insert. I don't know. Learn to use the tools, and then you sort of develop a feel for which one might feel the best. But you can see that it's like I messed up. I used the split measure command sort of instinctively to chop off those last few beats, and then I realized that left me with this weird length extra measure there that I didn't really want. I never should have used the split. I should have used Control Delete. So whatever, you recover. As for using the insert versus joining, totally personal preference. I typically use join more than I use insert if I'm creating a big long passage, but if I realize I just want to insert one extra beat, I might just use the insert command for that. In fact, I'd probably use, if I just wanted one extra beat in a measure, I would probably use Control Shift letter name. Probably what I would do, but they all work. So that's the nice thing in MuseScore is we give you options. So when I mentioned Mensure Streak is a thing that is done in Renaissance music, in modern editions of Renaissance music. So like this wasn't so much used back in 1500 or 1600, but it became common in maybe 18 or 19. I don't actually know how long it goes, how far back it goes. Mensure Streak is the idea of putting bar lines between the staves instead of on the staves. So for instance, if I select this bar line here and say I want it to span to the next staff, but I don't want it to start here at line 0, which is the top line. I want it to start on basically the lines are numbered lines and spaces 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Line 8 is going to be the bottom 8, the bottom line. I'm counting each line in space. So I think if I say span from line 8, notice that gave me kind of what I wanted there. And then I'm going to do the same with this staff. Span it to the next staff and say span from line 8. Now in both cases, and then on the bottom staff, I don't need any bar line at all. So I can actually make all of its bar lines invisible. So I could actually do that in staff properties and say I don't want to show bar lines on that bottom staff. Now I can select this here and click that sort of between staffs barred line I just added and click set as staff default. And now all the bar lines on that staff are that way. And then the same with that other one I did, set as staff default. And then do the same on the top staff. Span the next staff, span from 8, set as default. Now I've got Mensure Streak. And this is a really common way that Renaissance music is presented. And yes, Bob's got a question about these little doohickeys here. Ambitus is the MuseScore term for it. I guess it's a Latin term. Sometimes you'll just see it referred to as the tessitura, something that indicates the range of the voices. So this is telling you that soprano part is its lowest note is a D, its highest note is an A. Those are added by clicking the clef in your score. So like if I want to add it to my MuseScore Café, I click a clef and then come to the lines palette and then click that little symbol right there where it says ambitus. And that will automatically calculate the range of it. And then if I select the note, if I select a thing, I can come over to the inspector and fine tune how it's actually displayed. But that's really common in Renaissance music. So to show the range of the voices. Because that helps, before it was really standardized to soprano, alto, tenor, bass with kind of relatively standardized ranges. It was really useful when looking at a score to just be able to look at it and understand what the ranges of these parts were. So there's one additional thing that I would want to do if I were to call this Mensure Streak. This is fine, actually, but notice like this note here is tied across the bar line. The B flat tied across the bar line because bar lines, that's what we expect. Well, in the Renaissance, if you're not using bar lines, you might not expect to have things tied across bar lines like that. It would actually be common to just notate, for instance, this F as just a whole note and let the bar line show up in the middle of it. Well, we have an option for it. We call it experimental, we call it experimental, but it seems to work pretty well. So I need to remember where it is. It's in Format, Style. It's on the main score page here. Display note values across measure boundaries. Experimental, early music only. I'm going to check it and press OK. And now you see that F there is now written as a whole note, not as two tied half notes. This is, I didn't mean to undo. Let me redo. I meant to save. I was afraid that it had just, screwed itself up, but no, that was just me accidentally undoing. So this style of notation, where not only are the bar lines only displayed between staves, but also notes are allowed to straddle those bar lines. This style of notation is super duper common in modern editions of Renaissance music. So I'm wondering now, though, when I see like this Domine has this, lyric extender to indicate that that's a melisma. My guess is in Mensure Streak editions, those must not be used so much because it looks kind of ugly. And I've never really thought about that before, but now I want to check. So I know IMSLP is full of Mensure Streak editions, so I'm just going to pull up some random bit of Josquin. It is pronounced. Well, I actually don't know what language that's meant to be pronounced in, so I actually don't know if it's ya or ja or ha. But whatever, that guy. He's famous, and I don't know how to pronounce his name. So let's look at his Ave Maria, and let's see if it's written in Mensure Streak in this edition. It's pretty likely because there's tons of Mensure Streak all over this music. This one isn't, and it's not very good. I see these ties intersecting those dashes, so I picked a bad example. I had all these examples queued up before, but then when I had to reboot, I lost them all. So let's try this one. See if this is a Mensure Streak. Doesn't look like it. I couldn't quite tell from the thumbnail. I'm curious to see how published editions, and they are not using the Mensure Streak either. When I was hunting for examples to use, Mensure Streak was all over the place, and of course now that I want it, I can't find it, which is highly annoying. But I can tell that's not by the thumbnail. In any case, that if you want to make those, if I wanted to not have all of those, let's see, this says first edition, really, but those are individual parts. I don't want individual parts. I want the full score. Looks like that one doesn't have the full score, so I'm just striking out big time. Oh, Joskan. Thank you. Joskan, like that, Joskan. That would totally make sense, and that would absolutely make a ton of sense. So I would love that to be true. And I'm inclined to believe you on that. So thank you. Kyrie, this is. Oh, that's a recording. I don't want a recording. I want a score. These editions were mostly Mensure Streak editions. I recognize the title page there. So just because I figured you'd want to see I certainly want to see a real one, how they handle those. They're using dotted bar lines between them on this edition, but yeah, there's not there, you can see like Kyrie, the last A has all this melisma, and they're not drawing the underscore on it. So what they did in entering that version there was not use underscores. So I guess that's probably the thing to do. Those are some of the things that I wanted to show you. And let me just do a quick check in the community thing where I had posted what I said I was going to talk about. And I had this all, again, fired up and preloaded before I had to reboot. So individual measures, fewer more beats than normal, passages with no meter, yes. Cadenza, scale worksheets. Oh yeah, and scale worksheets, this comes up all the time. Like if I want to produce a scale worksheet where I'm writing some scale that's, say, the whole half diminished scale. Whole step, half step, and then whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step. I want that many beats to be one measure. So I select them, join them all, and then select those stray beats and Control Delete to get rid of them. So this is, and maybe I'll spell this guy as an E flat instead. whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step. So this scale here, so when I'm creating scale worksheets and other exercises like that, in which I'm really showing fragments of music that aren't meant to be played in time, I use these same techniques. So yeah, that's absolutely a thing. And then also, for that matter, creating pickup measures. If when you first create your score with Control N, then you have the option, I'll make it for a cornet and a trombone. You have the option of selecting the pickup measure and stating its duration. But I never bother. I seldom bother. I should, but I don't. So if I want a pickup measure here, and so I want that C to be my only beat, I will just delete the extra beats. And there. Now I've got my pickup measure. For completeness, I should also go to Measure Properties and exclude from measure count, so the pickup doesn't get counted. And if you are writing kind of Baroque style simple piano pieces, it's also traditional that at the end of the piece, especially like what were called dance forms, minuets and so forth, the last measure of the piece is very often shortened, so that if the pickup is 1 beat, the last measure is only 3 beats. That way you can keep repeating it and you see there's only 3 beats there, then the pickup happens. So for these short forms that are meant for dancing so they can be repeated indefinitely until the dancers get tired, that's real common. It's not common in real music, like modern music, music composed today, or modern editions of older music, but it was certainly common in historic editions of this music. And you'll definitely still see it in current editions of things like Bach minuets. You'll see that convention still used sometimes, but it's by no means something that is recommended for people composing their own music. So when I'm making a scale, if I'm literally just making a scale worksheet and there's nothing on it but scales, then yes, what I would do is I would just take that time signature and hide it. You can also right-click the staff and go into Staff Properties and unclick Show Time Signature. And now the time signature doesn't show up at all. Depending on what you're doing, because maybe in the same worksheet, some passages you want the time signature, other passages you don't. So I typically go ahead and play it safe and just hide the time signatures in the places where I don't want it. But yeah, that's totally kind of up to you how you might want to do that sort of thing. So yeah, those are some of the things that I wanted to show you there. And thanks for all the comments coming in here. I see some good comments coming in, and some questions about good comments. I saw one that I missed before. It says, I've seen some cases where it fails, but it's pretty rare. If by cases where it fails you mean Control Delete to delete beats, on Mac systems, there have been maybe 10 reports over the last 2 years, not a lot, but enough that it's not a fluke, where it works and then it stops working for some reason. Like maybe a dozen people in the last 2 years have reported, and they're all on Mac, have all reported it just suddenly stopped working for them. And then if they close MuseScore and restart it, it starts again. That's a complete mystery to us. There was a bug like that affected all systems, and we fixed it a year or two ago. But apparently on Mac systems, it's still somehow possible to get in a situation where that command disables itself. I'm not aware of it ever happening on any other systems, but there's not so many of them that I can be absolutely positive it's Mac specific. It could just be coincidence, but no, there's enough of them, enough Mac specific ones that I suspect whatever the problem is more likely to happen on Mac. Anyhow, close MuseScore, start it again. If you were talking about something else, that's fine too. But that's something that was worth talking about. So I see you're talking about something else entirely. That's fine. But I still hopefully gave you some useful information. So Yeah, so thanks, Jeremy, for the comments about MuseScore and its direction. So yeah, lots of great things happening, lots of great things possible, lots of great things coming. So I intended for this to be maybe on the shorter side of the cafe, but I spent so long solving technical problems that didn't end up being the case. So sorry about that. But let's play it out. So, thank you all for being here. This has been Marc Sabatella with the MuseScore Cafe. And again, I do this every Wednesday, so by all means, usually I don't have technical issues that badly. If there's a glitch, it's a real temporary one, and I fix it quickly. This was one of the worst ones, really, in all the years I've been doing this, but we got through it, right? So, thanks again. Do check out the link pinned at the top. You'll find my online course for learning MuseScore. Incredibly comprehensive, thorough, and it doesn't have me rambling and trying to fix technical glitches. You just get to the point. Here's a 5-minute video on time signatures or whatever that just really nails it. So highly recommended. And also my theory courses, my basic theory course, my harmony course, my counterpoint course, and of course the community. Join the community if you haven't already. That way you can participate in these discussions, ask more questions, share your music, get comments. It's a wonderful resource. So I hope to see you all there. You can get there, from my same site that I just posted the link to, which is, of course, no longer here, but it's school.masteringmusescore.com is the school site. And then when you click where it says community at the top, it'll take you over to the community and you can get there. So anyhow, thanks. Next week, I think I'm going to do another one of those ones that I did in I said I was going to start a new series of just entering music so you could watch me enter some music. So that's what I think I'm going to do. I'm going to make it the third week of the month tradition. So that's my plan for next week. And tomorrow, the music masterclass, come join me then as we talk more about making music. So thanks again, everyone, for hanging with me despite all the technical glitches, and I will see you